Maverick News presents The Rick Walker Show. Defrag your mind.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the Maverick News Channel. We have a lot of ground to cover tonight, stacked show. A lot of stories kind of developing or coming in at the end of the day today. So I had to kind of scramble a little bit just to familiarize myself with the information before coming on to talk with you guys tonight. Vladimir Zelensky. Was he targeted for an attempted assassination in Odessa? We'll get into it. Marjorie Taylor Greene. This has to be my favorite soundbite video clip of the month so far. Not that we're that far into the month. What is it today? The 6th day. Maybe the of the past month, say the past 4 weeks. Okay? She gets triggered and tells the reporter to, well, you know, if you haven't seen it already, you will soon, and you'll understand why I'm so smitten with this clip. Joseph Stalin, fashion. You know, okay, can't make this stuff up. Yeah, there's a new fashion line out. Inspired by Joseph Stalin. It would be like the last guy I would think of to inspire fashion, but okay, we'll show you what it looks like. I just don't know. The world is so strange. The Emergencies Act, you know, they had the public inquiry after Justin Trudeau invoked it. That was mandatory, and then Justice Rouleau said that the federal government should respond in some meaningful way within a year. Well, we had Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc address that. This all relates to the Freedom Convoy, the lockdowns. Well, specifically the Freedom Convoy, because that's what it was used to crush at the time. Hotel California, if we have time, I'll talk about this. There is a legal case, there was a legal case surrounding the legal rights to some of the notes, the handwritten notes with the lyrics for the songs on the album. Anyway, that's kind of different. Chinese police stations in Canada, huge issue. Really something that concerns a lot of people. And tonight, there's pushback on that against the federal government for having taken some action on that front. Hyper-vaccinated. This dude gets he gets jabbed like 217 times. I don't know if you've seen, have you seen that? Well, you're gonna. My gosh. Oh my gosh. Immigration. The federal government has a new pilot program for immigration, well, in Canada. And of course, immigration, a huge issue in the U.S. as well. What else do we have on the list here? LinkedIn, another service outage for a social media platform. Yeah, wow. Lots of ground to cover. Lots of stories. Many things to discuss. And if we have time, we'll go to the phones. I know there are some burning issues that some people would like to talk about tonight. Share their thoughts. Weigh in on the conversation. If we have time, we'll get into that and give you guys a voice as well. We shall see how things progress here tonight. So stay with me. We've got lots to go over.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So let's start with the Zelensky story. Overnight, I did receive word from Kevin Michelizzi, who started to follow this story about this attack on Odessa. And the reason it was highlighted is because Vladimir Zelensky was in Odessa with the Greek Prime Minister when Russia hit that area with missiles. There was some pretty serious damage done, and for a time, Zelensky's whereabouts and his welfare, they were in serious question. People were wondering if maybe he had been killed. So we know now that he is alive. The question is, was that an attempted assassination? There was the sound of a large explosion in the port. He was there, Zelensky, with the Greek Prime Minister, who had ended a tour of that southern city. And so these delegations were there. Zelensky was also there to, I guess, pay tribute to the military units on the front line in the war and to the crews that were involved in attacking Russian ships and successfully sinking this week the Kotov, a Russian patrol boat. So we did receive reports overnight as well that, there were casualties, some people killed. 12 people, including 5 children, were killed in that area back on March 2nd. And then in this latest attack also, we received some reports of possible casualties, and Kevin started to follow this. But in the end, Zelensky appeared. He is still alive. Still some speculation as to whether Russia was actually trying to target him, maybe his motorcade. So, interesting development, but nevertheless, he made it out alive. So, okay. Now we're going to shift gears here a little bit. I was going to show you some of the speech that Zelensky made while he was there, but I don't think it's worth the time just because there's no translation for it, and I don't think many, if any, of the people in our audience speak Ukrainian. Here's a bombshell. During a Georgia Senate hearing, attorney Ashley Merchant disclosed White House records showing that Georgia DA Fani Willis actually met with Vice President Kamala Harris on February 28th of last year. Now, this took place just before charges were brought against Donald Trump for alleged election interference. So that is a new revelation and disclosure. Not sure where that will end up taking us, but it's a major development, and it shows that, strong possibility of some manipulation or bias there in the decision to lay charges against Donald Trump. In fact, it may be fabrication. So, all right, Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's not wait any longer because this is priceless. It really is. I have to say it's it's also, how can I put this? It's a sign of the times. This is a reflection of the dark the dark place that we've descended to as a society, and to the lowest. This is maybe the lowest level of politics or political discourse in American, maybe world history. So Marjorie Taylor Greene, this is, of course, after the Super Tuesday stuff. She's there celebrating with President Trump, and she's approached by this reporter from the UK who asks her some questions, and then at the end you'll see the reporter asks one final question that triggers Marjorie Taylor Greene. And if you know anything about what's going on out there in the world, you'll understand why. Here we go. Let's just watch this clip because it is, as I say, precious.
Thank you so much, the news agents in from London. What do you think the message should be to Nikki Haley tonight?
Well, we've been encouraging her to drop out and support President Trump, and I think tonight is the clear message that President Trump is the clear front runner. He's the winner in our Republican primary, and it's time for Nikki Haley to drop out and support him.
Do you think President Trump, Mr. Trump, is closer to picking his VP, and should you be on that list?
Oh, that's the question everyone asks, and no, I don't think Nikki Haley should be on the list, but of course President Trump will choose who he wants for VP.
Would you like to be on that list?
He's got a long list. I support President Trump in any way he'd ask me, but I can assure you it won't be Nikki Haley.
And can you tell me why so many people that support Donald Trump love conspiracy theories, including yourself? He seems to attract lots of conspiracy theorists.
Well, let me tell you, you're a conspiracy theorist, and the left and the media spreads more conspiracy theories. We like the truth. We like supporting our Constitution, our freedoms, and America first. So,
what about Jewish space lasers? Tell us about Jewish space lasers.
No, why don't you go talk about Jewish space lasers? And really, why don't you off? How about that?
Thanks. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Oh, I shouldn't even laugh. It's that's a low point, but it's funny at the same time. Funny at the same time. It's just, oh my God. Oh. Well, while we're chuckling, why don't I'm going to save the Stalin thing. I'm going to save it until later. We'll save it. Okay. It's just too much. Ottawa is resuming funding to UNRWA, UNRWA, the UN relief agency that supports Palestinians. Funding was cut off there for a while because there were revelations that that organization has direct ties to Hamas and that they were involved directly in the October 7th attack on Israel. So funding was suspended, but now being resumed. I also saw that Justin Trudeau was out snowboarding, and all these Palestinians came skiing in. You might be able to find the clip online. And they started talking to him and applying verbal pressure, telling him that they wanted him to put more emphasis on a ceasefire. So they had a discussion about that, and Trudeau says that he's been calling for a ceasefire and will continue to do so, and then he snowboards down the hill. Now, I know that the other story that's really top of mind for people tonight has got to be this, the federal government's decision in Canada to consult. They say they're going to consult on possible changes to the Emergencies Act with the provinces. So today, Public Safety Minister Dominic LeBlanc outlined the government's response to the final report of the Public Order Emergency Commission. This is the result of that public inquiry into the use of the Emergencies Act, which in 1988, that's when it took effect. The Emergencies Act is the new version, the revised version of what used to be called the War Measures Act. Justin Trudeau made use of it during the Freedom Convoy to crack down on the protesters. It gave the government special powers at the time for a limited amount of time, but special powers nonetheless. And you heard me say it here. The day he did that, I said that was the day Canada died. Because he used that act that, in my view, should be reserved for as a response to a war or a major disaster of some kind that poses an existential threat to the nation. But he used it against his own people. As a result, the nation has been, I would say, forever changed because of his authoritarian approach and his decision to use it. His father used the War Measures Act. They're the only two prime ministers in history who have used that piece of legislation. First the War Measures Act, and now the revised version of it, the Emergencies Act. Well, the safety minister today says that they will push ahead with consultations with the provinces to determine what kind of changes or revisions might be made to the Emergencies Act so that it might be used in a more effective way, a more proper way moving forward into the future, if indeed it is ever needed again. Let's go to the news conference here with Dominic LeBlanc in Ottawa.
Found that the high threshold to invoke the Emergencies Act was met and the decision was appropriate. It also contained 56 recommendations to address gaps that were identified and proposed changes that should be made if the Act were ever to be invoked again. The government's response focuses on ongoing and next steps as they relate to each of those recommendations. February 2022 marked the first time that the Emergencies Act was invoked since it became law in 1988. The hindsight provided by the Commission's work, as well as the work undertaken by the Government of Canada and parliamentarians, offers us a critical outlook on potential changes that could be brought to the Emergencies Act. As such, the Government of Canada will engage directly provinces and territories, Indigenous partners, stakeholders, and civil society on all 22 Emergencies Act-related recommendations, including seeking views on potential legislative amendments as described in those recommendations. Afin de donner suite aux recommandations du rapport final de la Commission Rouleau, le gouvernement du Canada consultera les provinces et les territoires, les partenaires autochtones, les parties prenantes et la société civile au sujet des 22 recommandations en lien avec la loi sur les mesures d'urgence, y compris en cherchant à obtenir leur point de vue sur des modifications législatives potentielles telles que décrites dans ces recommandations. The Emergencies Act gives governments extraordinary powers to act in extraordinary situations. Our government did not invoke the Emergencies Act lightly, and we hope that no future government will have to resort to it. It also contains, the Emergencies Act, important safeguards to ensure Canadians' charter rights are upheld, and the Rouleau Commission demonstrated the robustness of the Act's built-in accountability mechanisms. Au cours des prochains mois, nous poursuivrons notre travail afin de mettre en œuvre les mécanismes de coordination, surtout coordination policière et de surveillance nécessaires afin que nous soyons prêts à réagir rapidement à toute éventualité. Once again, I want to thank Commissioner Rouleau and his team for the extraordinary work that they did. Et je suis, comme toujours, maintenant très heureux de répondre à vos questions.
Okay, so the thing about that decision by Rouleau is, even though he said that the threshold was met, and he, in his view, the use of the Emergencies Act was justified, he also said that you could easily see it the other way. And then, on top of that, we've just seen now this court ruling, which is more significant than the inquiry is, because the inquiry has recommendations that are not binding. It was not a trial, which most people do not understand. But there was this subsequent court ruling just recently, which did come to the conclusion, there was a ruling that the use of the Emergencies Act was unconstitutional in the way that Trudeau used it. The way I interpret that decision, it is that there was no national emergency, that it was used really in a more targeted way, and more specifically at in places like Ottawa, mainly Ottawa, where this protest was happening, rather than like a nationwide threat to the government, if indeed there was a threat at all. Depends on, I suppose, your point of view and how you view the bouncy castles. So the court ruling more significant than this, but because of the inquiry, we will now get a series or a set of maybe changes that will be made to the Emergencies Act. Jagmeet Singh, leader of the New Democratic Party. This is the party, of course, for our American friends who do not understand Canadian politics. Trudeau has in Canada a minority government, which means he doesn't have enough votes from his own party to support his key pieces of legislation. So he has this agreement in place with the NDP and Jagmeet Singh to prop up his government. The NDP is the tail wagging the dog. They're getting all kinds of policies passed that they want, maybe even more than the Liberals, pushing federal government policy further and further to the left, more and more socialist all the time. That's where the NDP is on the political spectrum. Well, tonight, Jagmeet Singh says that in his view, the federal government is kind of dragging its feet on these changes to the Emergencies Act. Said, citing what Justice Rouleau said, that the government should respond within a year on this. Here's Jagmeet Singh.
We want to see it happen.
Great, thank you. And just to shift gears here as well, Dominic LeBlanc was out this morning saying they're going to be launching consultations on bringing forward amendments to modernize and change the Emergencies Act. What's the NDP position on this? Does the Emergencies Act legislation need to be modified through amendment?
Oh, absolutely. We from the beginning said that we need to be very open to any recommendations and improve the legislation based on the recommendations we receive. We supported the procedure that called for a public inquiry, and we supported the findings of the public inquiry. And what we're disappointed in is the fact that Liberals haven't released a timeline or clear steps they're going to take to put in place those recommendations. We should be listening to the work of the Rouleau Commission. That's the whole point of having the commission. For too long, we've seen the Liberals get a report and a recommendation and then shelve it, allow it to collect dust, and never put in place those recommendations. That's wrong. We need to actually follow through on what's been recommended. We know that even implementing the Emergencies Act itself was a recognition of the failure of all levels of government to respond to what was going on across our country and in Ottawa, and that a recognition of that failure meant that resorting to the Emergency Act was a last-ditch effort. Should never got to that point, and now we're hearing that the recommendations, there's no clear timeline to make those changes. We think that's the wrong approach. We would implement the changes with a clear timeline and do it as quickly as possible.
Our next question.
Okay. LinkedIn, another social media platform. Problems. It went down today. I went out to the grocery store today, ran into a friend of mine who I hadn't seen in quite a while, and he instantly started talking about the outage on other social media platforms, specifically Facebook. Well, he said that really messed up his phone. And yes, I noticed as well that Facebook was doing some weird things on my device as well. As you know, our whole Facebook platform has been blocked. I have no access. But because of the outage, what happened for a very brief time, I was able to partially log in to Facebook because of the breach. So as they were bringing it back online overnight or whatever, I was suddenly able to get in and access some of my old photos, but that was as far as I could go. It wouldn't let me do anything more. Then the full block came back online. So whatever was going on, it looked like it almost gave me access back to my account, which I had been banned from. So that was an interesting development. Weird stuff going on with the security, I think, at these social media platforms. And I think it's also weird to see them all being affected by this at the same time. I think there's stuff going on they're not telling us. Just my guess. These are coincidences that are too coincidental to be coincidences. A little too weird. There's a screenshot up on Twitter tonight, X. LinkedIn back up following a brief outage. Actually, this is a news story from Twitter. Microsoft's LinkedIn said Wednesday it was back up after a brief outage. It impacted thousands of users. For up to 48,000 reports of outages in the United States. Something weird is going on out there. Of course, there's something weird. It's Wednesday. Of course, and tomorrow's Thursday. There will be weird stuff tomorrow, but it will be the Thursday kind of weird stuff, not the stuff that you get on Wednesday. It's just a little bit different. Weekends. Now then you get pretty weird stuff, but it's more casual, you know. It's, my phone's bleeping. It's probably spying on me. You just wait, you'll see. Tomorrow, I can guarantee more weird stuff. And we'll tell you all about it right here on the Maverick News Channel. Betty Ford, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I'm going to show you. Do you remember Gerald Ford? He's the president that took over from Nixon after Nixon stepped down. And then Betty Ford, not like the actress, Betty Ford, the First Lady. Do you remember her? Well, today at the White House, they unveiled a new stamp honoring Betty Ford. Here it is. Let's check it out.
The Betty Ford Center for Substance Dependency, lending her name and energies to spark greater visibility for the drug rehabilitation services that was so widely needed then and unfortunately now. Betty Ford was a force for good, and her weapons were openness and honesty. She was a devoted partner to her husband and a devoted public servant. To recognize her many contributions to our nation, we will officially issue the Betty Ford Commemorative Forever postage stamp on April 5th. A dedication ceremony will be held at Eisenhower Health in Rancho Mirage, California. The Postal Service is proud to honor First Lady Betty Ford. Thank you. And now I would like to invite those on stage to join me in revealing this new stamp.
There it is. Have you guys, I don't know if any of you are stamp collectors out there. It's probably an old-fashioned hobby. I used to have a stamp collection. I'm such a nerd. I don't know where they are. I think they're still around my parents' house.
And that,
Okay. Well, there you go. Betty Ford's stamp. Do you guys follow stamp collecting at all, or coin collecting? Coin collecting these days interests me more because you're talking, potentially coins that are produced using precious metals, gold, silver. So they can be a pretty cool investment and a fun thing to collect as well. But have you seen? I know that we talked about it this would be a couple of months ago, looking at some of those coins with the the Year of the Dragon, Chinese symbols used on these coins. I know some people were concerned about that. I get it. I go to the post office. I look at the stamps as well that they make these days, and the cultural shift. Stamps are a reflection of where we are at as a society and a culture. And you look at the people that they're honoring, commemorating on stamps. It tells you where the mindset is with the government. It really does. At any given moment in time. If you go back to the 70s or the 60s, I've got a roll of coins, silver dollars. They're not actual silver, but dollar coins from the 80s commemorating Jacques Cartier. I've still rolled from. I've had them since the 80s when I was really collecting coins as a kid. But you wouldn't see that kind of content today. That's too colonialist, you see. So there's been a huge shift. If you want to know, where the Overton window so to speak is politically in the country, or at least where the government's Overton window is, maybe not the people's necessarily, just go check out the stamps and the coins and see what they're putting on them, and that'll tell you where the mindset is. And then, I mentioned the Chinese symbols on the coins. Well, more concerns about Chinese influence in Canada. People were really concerned about those Chinese police stations. Well, a new lawsuit has been filed today in Superior Court in Canada. 2 Chinese community organizations are taking legal action against the RCMP. Why? Well, it stems from allegations made by the National Police Force accusing these organizations of functioning as police stations, as I just indicated, for the Chinese government. The Chinese Family Services of Greater Montreal and the Centre Sino-Quebec de la Rive Sud, all along with their executive director, Zixi Li, are seeking over $4.9 million in damages. They've denied any wrongdoing, but claim they've been left in the dark regarding specific allegations. All this nearly a year after the RCMP's initial claims. So these accusations have taken a toll on their reputations and dignity, it says in the suit, particularly for Zixi Li, who also serves as a Brossard city councillor. The lawsuit alleges that the RCMP's claims damaged her standing in the community. So lawyer Maurice Lapointe, representing the 2 groups, stated, in her words, "My clients hope that the matter can be resolved amicably, but they are also ready to go to trial if needed. They will do what is required to repair their reputation." Back in December, with support from 2 Canadian senators, the groups had threatened legal action against the RCMP, and now they've followed through with their promise. However, the RCMP has yet to commit on the matter, leaving many questions unanswered. Corporal Kim Chamberlain had previously stated that the RCMP's actions aimed to disrupt illegal activity, but acknowledged that legitimate community services may have been affected. The lawsuit goes on to allege that the RCMP failed to provide evidence to support its claims when requested, leading to severe damages, including the loss of government funding and grants. This legal battle underscores the importance of thorough investigations on the consequences of making public accusations without substantial evidence. This is a lesson that the police are learning now, the RCMP, the National Police Service. You know, we all might take note of what's going on here before we start making any kind of accusations online, folks, that might lead to any possible legal action against you. Just be mindful of this. Even the cops can get sued for making allegations against a person or an organization that they cannot back up with evidence, facts, and proof, and take that into court and get a positive outcome on their side. So we'll continue to follow this story for sure. And those charges leveled by the RCMP, that brought the issue to the surface nationally, piqued a lot of interest, and generated a lot of concern right here on this program, right in the chat. You guys have called in. We've had discussions about this, the Chinese police stations. And now I don't know where this is going to go, because if they can't prove that these were actually what they claimed they were, well, then the government might be on the hook for a whole lot of money in terms of damages. So that, of course, is tax dollars. That comes out of our pockets. Of course it does. The government can't lose, ultimately, because when they lose, we lose. Wouldn't it be nice to win one for a change? I'll be right back.
Feel the vibrations. Our quest continues. The truth is out there. We are Mavericks.
Fighting the Great Reset. By leading the Great Resistance. Maverick News. The antivirus programs for your mind.
So still kind of in the same vein as the Chinese police stations, Chinese influence in Canadian society. This moves really more over into the U.S. side of things now, but still with concerns about China. A former Google, well, I don't know if this might actually be, well, it isn't sort of in the U.S. and Canada. A former Google engineer has been charged with stealing artificial intelligence technology while allegedly working in secret with Chinese firms. Yeah, so there's this. We've got the biolab thing in Canada with two scientists there, a husband and wife, taking on work with companies associated with the Chinese government. And now this, a software engineer with Google, charged with secretly working for two companies based in China. These charges coming from the U.S. Justice Department. Lin Wai Ding, a Chinese national, has been arrested in Newark, California. 4 counts he's been charged with of federal trade secret theft, each punishable by up to 10 years in prison. This case against Ding has been announced at an American Bar Association conference in San Francisco. So I guess what we're looking at here is the latest illustration of the lengths that companies based in China might be willing to go to steal American technology and innovation. And that's a major concern for the FBI, which echoes what I just said. And people, I think, we need to be aware of these things and concerned. Seems every time we turn around now, like there's the lab thing, this thing, and then Top Gun, the movie, had Chinese influence in it too. What's the world coming to? Even Hollywood's been infiltrated. Our popular culture. Well, we're still getting cheap stuff. As long as we don't go to war, we stay friendly, we can work together, I'd be okay. There's just all this concern about China overtaking us and the economy and the U.S. dollar and the struggle for everything and the BRICS nations and the new currency and the U.S. dollar as a world reserve currency being displaced. And if that happens, yeah, we could end up with a lot of poverty here. The world is changing. That much is for sure. And that company at the heart of that ArriveCan scandal, they've now been banned from participating in any process to acquire new federal government contracts. The name of the company, GC Strategies. This all happening in addition to a November 2023 decision by Public Services and Procurement Canada, which suspended GC Strategies from participating in PSPC procurement processes. And this suspension is in place until further notice. As you know, this app was originally supposed to cost somewhere around maybe $50,000, $80,000, and the costs ballooned to at least $60 million. Where did all that money go? It's turned into one heck of an issue, and I think it will be one of the main issues as we continue forward into what I think is going to be an election year. I know. Some people are like, it's not going to happen. Yes, I think it is. Has to happen by 2025 anyway. And I know for most of you, the sooner the better, right? You want change, and I totally get it. Me too. I would like to have an election. Let the people decide. Gotta go there. What else do we have going on? Well, I can't believe this. I cannot understand how the guy is still alive. How do you get 217 COVID shots and not die? If it's true, and it appears to be, it's the guy's defying the odds. 217 COVID shots this dude got. He got something like 49 in 1 month. He's from Germany, 62 years old. And he got these shots in the span of about 29 months. That's an average of one jab every 4 days, guys. 217. So we can't show you a picture. His identity, as far as I know, is being protected because of medical privacy. But the story is now making the rounds. I'd actually heard about this guy some months ago, but it didn't. And I mentioned it here on the show. If it's the same guy, if I remember correctly, I'm pretty sure it's got to be. I mean, who else? How many people go out and get over 200 shots? So yeah, back in May of 2022, researchers approached the guy's lawyer because they wanted to find out who he was to get a message to him. And now they're doing some research on him to see what kind of impact this hyper vaccination is having on his immune system. And so far, everything they've seen indicates that the guy is okay. I don't know. I don't see how it's possible. I don't know how you get 217 injections of any kind of vaccine in that short span of time and not have it have some sort of effect on your health. It's got to happen. There's got to be more information that will come out of this in the months ahead. We'll keep our eyes open on that one because I think the other shoe has got to drop. 217 times. What? And the guy hasn't ever had COVID. The doctors are saying, well, it's probably because he's been vaccinated so much. Or maybe the whole thing's a ruse just to make people think that just to ease concerns about the safety and efficacy of the vaccines. Wow. Everybody here knows the album Hotel California. I didn't realize this, but when I found this story today, third most successful album of all time. Of all time. Well, there's been an ongoing legal battle between Don Henley of the Eagles band and somebody who had access to these rare, well, they were like hand-drafted lyrics for the songs. There were about 100 pages, I guess, of these things. Of course, that makes them highly collectible, right? And they were in possession of a rare book dealer. And anyway, there's this whole dispute over whether this guy had the legal rights to have these things. So Don Henley took these guys to court today after kind of a long drawn out fight. It really was not resolved in the end with like a verdict. The charges were all dropped. And that's, I guess, because there were some new emails that were disclosed. And that kind of, whatever was in those emails, and I don't know, we're not being told exactly what was in there, but I guess the case from Henley saying that this guy didn't have the rights to own these things or have them, it fell apart because of what was in the email messages. So there must have been something in there where he was like, oh, that's okay, you can just hang on to them or whatever. Probably, I don't know. I have no idea. We don't know what really was in there. But that's an interesting story too, mainly because I knew that it was a successful album. I didn't know it was the third highest selling album of all time. Wow. Little pop culture trivia for you there. Just keep that one in your back pocket when you're playing some new edition of Trivial Pursuit in the future when they add that question to the cards. Does anybody even play Trivial Pursuit anymore? That was the hot thing for a while, you know? That was a hot game. Are board games even popular anymore? Or is everybody playing video games online or spending all their time looking at, you know, their cell phones? I would imagine some people are still buying board games. When I used to have hobby shops years ago, we sold a lot of Monopoly and special edition Monopolies. It was always popular. And, oh yeah, my dad, who wants me to get all his junk out of my junk out of his house. He phoned me up here about a month ago and said, "I've got all these board games. I want you to come and get them. Get them out of my way." And I'd sort of forgotten they were there. All these board games that I got when I was a kid. So I have them in a box upstairs, but boy, did they bring back memories. Do you remember there was an old board game called Manhunt? I have that one. Here, I'll show you a picture of it. You guys can share in the memory. A little nostalgia. Here we go. Oh, this was so high tech back in the day. All the kids watching the show are gonna laugh because it had like this electronic, semi-electronic or what thingy majiggy. It was not even electronic. I think it was like more on springs or whatever, and there was like a clue cards and stuff like that. Do you remember that game? Yeah, so I had that one. That brought back memories. I'd kind of forgotten all about it. And maybe this is why I'm into cars. I had this game, and I'd forgotten about this one too. It's called Dealer's Choice. There it is right there. It's a board game about buying and selling used cars. It wasn't actually a bad game. I used to play with my brothers. Dealer's Choice. There it is there. I had no idea they're worth that much. $45, 1972. Wheeling and Dealing used car game from Parker Brothers. What else did I have? Oh, there was another one, and this is probably why I'm interested in politics. Poll Economy. Also from the 1970s. I think they've had different versions of this one, but here it is right here. I've got this one upstairs. Haven't played this in years. My one brother used to love to play this one. Here, I'll bring it up too and show you. Does anybody remember these games, or am I such a nerd and a dweeb that I had all the nerdy games? Poll Economy. Everybody knows Battleship and stuff like that, but how many kids were playing Poll Economy? That's politics and the economy, you see. And that's the Canadian version. Poll Economy. Got it upstairs. I got a bunch of them up there. All these old retro board games. I'm just going to look in the chat. Any comments on that? Anybody have any of those? Mastermind. That's another one. I'd forgotten about that. We had that, yeah. And what are some of the other ones from the 70s? Oh, there was Bing Bang Boing. Anybody remember that thing? Bing Bang Boing? It was like these plastic things, and you put this, it was like a balloon, basically, that stretched over, and they had to drop these ball bearings down the thing, and it would like hit each one of these drums and bounce, and you had to try and get them in the thingy. Nobody remember it. See, I have all the oddball games, the weird stuff. Battleship. Now see, that was a pretty fun game. Battleship. Yeah, we're seeing Battleship play out in the Red Sea, aren't we? Yeah. Houthis attacking a U.S. ship there. Let's see what the status is on that. Yeah, 3 sailors killed after the Houthis hit a ship in the Gulf of Aden. So this marks the first time that commercial shipping crew has suffered fatalities since the Houthis started launching strikes against commercial shipping activities from Yemen. 3 sailors have died and others have been injured. A Houthi missile was used to attack this ship in the Gulf of Aden. This confirmed by U.S. officials. It was the crew of the MV True Confidence. They'd abandoned the ship after the attack. The Houthis have claimed responsibility. The British Embassy in the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, posted on X today, stating at least 2 innocent sailors have died. This was the sad but inevitable consequence of the Houthis recklessly firing missiles in international shipping. They must stop, it says in the Post today, online. So this bulk carrier was drifting with a fire on board. It had been hit about 9:30 a.m., about 50 nautical miles southwest of Aden. That information being confirmed by the vessel's owner and operator. It was drifting for a time. And of course, this coalition of forces trying to combat the attacks from the Houthis and keep these ships safe, but very, very risky. And I know that the number of ships passing through there has dropped off significantly as a result of these attacks, with some shipping companies deciding that it's just not worth the risk. What else do we have for you tonight? Hypervaccination. We did that one. Oh, yeah, last night we talked about Paul Bernardo and Luca Magnotta, those 2 serial killers in Canada at that medium security prison where this conservative member of parliament produced this video really taking issue with them living the kind of life they're living there, focusing on what is a hockey rink in the winter, and it's converted into, or just is used as, a tennis court in the summer, making a big issue out of that, saying that a lot of ordinary Canadians and out in the real world don't even have access to facilities like that and other amenities that these serial killers have access to. Paul Bernardo being, in the eyes of many, perhaps the worst of the worst of the worst murderers in Canada, maybe in Canadian history. And there he is, with access, according to the Member of Parliament, to ice skates and hockey gear to go out and play, pick up hockey with the other inmates under the lights at night. The agency that administers and oversees the prisons, and that prison in particular, did issue a statement yesterday saying that's not the case, that the ice rink is not functional, and that they do not have access to those amenities, contrary to what Frank Caputo, the Member of Parliament, says in his video that we showed you yesterday. Well, excuse me, today, even though his claims have been disputed, Caputo had this published in the Toronto Sun. It is basically the printed version of his video, making exactly the same assertions as the video itself, So he's just gone ahead and published it anyway, despite what the prison service has said, which contradicts what he is saying about the amenities available there, but they do exist. The arena is there. It is set up for a tennis court. Whether it's functional or used, I don't know. Regardless, I know that just even having these prisoners like Luca Magnotta, again, like just a horrific murderer, and Paul Bernardo, just having them transferred from maximum security to this facility, enraged and continues to enrage Canadians who feel that those kinds of criminals, who will likely never get out of prison, but then again, you never know, that they shouldn't have access to any of these kinds of luxuries or privileges. And I totally get it. Totally get it. Trudeau's Bill C-83 law means that prisoners now must be held in the least restrictive environment. So as a result of that, medium security prisons are becoming the preferred confines, according to Caputo, for some of Canada's most notorious psychopathic killers. So even if you commit the most horrific of crimes in Canada, you can still play a little shinny.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
I am actually dipping into the chat here a bit on the YouTube side, and I see everybody still talking about the board games. Pickup sticks, jacks, yeah, rock'em sock'em robots, yeah. Yeah, jacks, yeah. Vaughn is laughing. Yeah, we've moved on, but I've moved back now because I want to talk about it too. It brings back so many memories. Oh, I remember too, when the video game era finally hit. All you young whippersnappers out there, you don't know what you're missing. We had Pong, Telstar. Remember Pong? Boop, boop, boop. Yeah, the serial killers get real tennis, but we had electronic tennis, the first incarnation, Pong. And if you got really, really, into it, you could play doubles. Oh, man, those were the days. And we thought that was so high-tech. Pong. And then, you had the first Nintendos and things like that. But today, I look at these video games, honestly, if you I don't know if we have probably not a lot of kids watching, but if you try to play the video games today, I get along in there for a while, and it's like you have to find doors and things, and the graphics are really cool, but I don't get it. The old stuff I get. I guess my mind is conditioned to play video games from like the 70s, 80s, 90s. And then I kind of stopped playing video games. And when I was a kid playing hockey, they would have at the rink, they would have some video arcade games in there. And of course, I know you guys will remember this, but the video arcade, that was the place to go, right? That was the place to go back in the 70s and 80s. I remember going downtown, and there was a video arcade even in our neighborhood at the local strip plaza. And boy, parents back then, they got so upset. They were so concerned about those video arcades. They thought those games were going to rot our brains, which they very well may have. Now that I look around and I see what's happened to, all the people, and I see all the zombies walking on the streets, I'm like, what happened to these people? Oh, they played video games back in the 90s. Yeah, everybody thought it was too much LSD, but no, it was the video games. And all the bad things were supposed to be happening at those video arcades. When I was in college and working at the college radio station and going through journalism school, I did a whole 5-part series for the local college radio station on video arcades and video games and the impact on society. And I interviewed psychologists and police and went to town on that. But that was the hot button issue of the day. Today, I mean, the issue is out there, but the games are way more graphic, way more violent. Grand Theft Auto. You ever play that game? I mean, in that game, you're just literally out there and you're murdering people on the street. Incredibly violent. Maybe they were right back then. It was like it's been a progression since then. And has that had an impact on society and the way people act? At the time, I argued no. That even movies and things like that, if you see violence in movies, it doesn't necessarily translate into real violence in real life. But maybe it does condition us in ways that we are not aware. Maybe it's the way that the content is presented, but society has sure deteriorated since the 70s and 80s, in my view. We had problems back then, but not like we have now. The video games, maybe just like the stamps and the coins, which are a reflection of society, maybe video games give us an indication of where we're at culturally as well. And in many other ways, too. Okay, so I'm kind of drifting here. I didn't mean to talk about all that stuff, but I think it's interesting and relevant. Okay, so immigration. I know that that's been a hot button issue too over the last week, especially with the with politics the way it is. Well, today the federal government of Canada has announced a new program, a new immigration program. It's a pilot program for immigrants that might be willing to move to rural areas and to francophone communities. So today, Canada's federal immigration minister, Mark Miller, went to Sudbury, Ontario to talk about this. The objective here, obviously, from the government's perspective anyway, is to provide a boost for the economy in areas that may be experiencing population decline, in areas where maybe people are not as inclined to move because of climate, temperature, the kind of facilities that are available, smaller communities, more remote. It appeals to some people, not to everybody. So federal program kind of designed here to see if they can convince newcomers to Canada to move to some of these smaller communities, and particularly French-speaking.
As of the end of January, 5,158 newcomers became permanent resident through this pathway, and roughly 87% of those who were surveyed and responded were still in these communities as of October of 2022, which is really big if I look at the national statistics. And you're clapping for yourselves, really, because it's you guys that have done it, and that agency. You know, the story of the big federal government deciding who comes into the country, and then people that come here take a generation to figure out. That isn't how it should be. It's often been the case too often, and this is an example of how the agency that you take and take responsibility for those people is very important as part of the integration process, because obviously we can't do it alone. And those odds that I mentioned, 87%, they actually defy sort of the it's lack of a better word, the depopulation odds in rural communities in a lot of ways. So these people, they're not only here, they love it and they want to stay and they want to contribute to build it. So this addresses the labor shortages in healthcare, manufacturing, retail accommodation and food services, as well as scientific and technical services. So last month, due to the ongoing interest in the advocacy of many parts of the country, my department extended the pilot's community recommendation period that was set to expire on February 29th. It made a lot of sense. We also increased the number of candidates that communities can recommend, which is key. These measures will allow participating communities to take part in the pilot for a longer period and help fill the labor needs with skilled candidates. J'ai le plaisir d'annoncer que le Canada s'appuie sur cette réussite pour...
So, bottom line is they're continuing with this program, expanding it, I guess, extending it. And then on the flip side, you're seeing politicians like Maxime Bernier coming out strongly against heavy immigration. I think the public in general also concerned about heavy immigration. A lot of people calling for immigration to be dialed back while the federal government continues to push forward. Not everybody's on that page. It will also be a major election issue as we move forward. And it is having a serious impact on culture in Canada, the political scene in Canada. Any way you slice it. So we'll see where it goes. We'll see where it goes. Even in my town, in the last few years, I'm seeing, within the last 5-10 years especially, a major shift in the demographics here for sure. Definitely. And so when I go up to places, especially around the Greater Toronto area, huge shift in demographics up there. Really, really different. Especially around places like, Brampton, Toronto. You know what I'm talking about. You're all living out there. So, just a reminder tonight that if you are inclined to, if you like what you're seeing, if you value the content we produce, you can support the program by donating at maverickdonations.com. Let me get the banner up on the screen for you here. Right there, maverickdonations.com. You can also donate at freedomreporters.com. And of course, we have these shirts. So if you donate $60 or more, we still have these embroidered shirts in black with the Maverick News logo. I'll send you one of those, or a Maverick News t-shirt with a donation of $30 or more, and or if you prefer, we have these too. These Knights of Malta, Exile the Knights of Malta t-shirts. Just give me an indication of what size you need, and I'd be happy to send you one. It would be my honor. So, that being said, let's take a brief break and check in with the Knights of Malta, which, by the way, I'm told in a message here tonight, that I need to watch out for the Knights of Malta, because they have it in for us because we've been talking about them and selling these T-shirts. Oh, I'm not that worried, but I am worried about one thing. I have not seen Choosy in the chat in the last couple of nights. I'm concerned that maybe Choosy has somehow lost access to the chat. I don't know why. I'm not sure why, but I'd like to address that. So if Choosy, if you're out there watching, maybe you want to come in the chat if you're able to, and just let me know that you're still alive and well and kicking. I'd like to see you in there, my friend. If not, send me an email or something, and I'll see if I can fix your access, because I miss you. I miss you. So, I don't know where you went last couple of nights. Or maybe you're just on a little break from the program, which is totally okay. But I'm looking for you. We miss you, Choosy. And in honor of Choosy, let's go to this transition now. Because we do need to exile the Knights of Malta and purge the country of corruption.
Exile. The Knights of Malta. Maverick News. Join us. The world is watching. Greetings, brave Mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. I think this is funny. Some people will love it. Some people might not like it at all. I think it's funny. Who wants to dress like Joseph Stalin? If I wanted to be fashion forward, honestly, it would be probably the last guy I would think of. It would, it's like, is there even a U.S. president that I could think of that would inspire my thirst for fashion? Nope, not one politician. GQ magazine. Oh, you know what? That makes me think. Back in the 90s, even maybe the early 2000s, I only remember GQ magazine as being a fashion magazine for men. And back in the day, I used to wear suits to work when I was working in television. And I'd go in, not that I bought a suit every week or anything, but my wife actually worked at a clothing store, so I was in there. She used to work at Tip Top Tailors. That's how I met her. Actually, working in a clothing store. There is a story for you, but GQ magazine was a fashion magazine for men. But now these fashion magazines have become political culture, cultural engineering. Have you noticed? They like Vogue That's all cultural engineering. GQ, all cultural engineering. Some fashion in there, of course, but the fashion is almost like an afterthought. It's all the politics, but cultural politics. That's what they're using to drive this progressive agenda here in the West, using culture to drive culture. Very interesting. Maybe it was always there, maybe I didn't notice it when I was younger because maybe I was just indoctrinated or immersed at a younger age into culture, like I think most people were, and on a more effective level at the time because there was no social media, no internet, so there was less of an alternative stream of content or information available to people. So these magazines, I thought that it was a fashion magazine back in the day with, some articles in it, but not as political or as oriented toward cultural change as they are today. Very, very different. In Russia, they have launched this new fashion line, this company, and it is inspired by Joseph Stalin. Now you can love him or hate him. It's irrelevant. The point that I'm making is I think Joseph Stalin's outfits were, I wouldn't want to dress like that. But here it is. Here's a commercial from this company in Russia that has launched this fashion line. And they are shooting this in areas of Ukraine that Russia has taken control of. That's why you're seeing the bombed out buildings and things. Not exactly sure why, but even here, I would say they are using fashion to drive politics, the politics behind this conflict in Ukraine, I guess, which is one of the reasons I think this is controversial and why some people like it and other people are opposed to it, overlaid against the current political situation is the politics from the past and Joseph Stalin, his communism, and the controversial nature of that. And look at that thing. Now, maybe you think it's cool, but I think that jacket, what does it make you guys think of? I won't say anything until I see what you guys say. It looks strange in the set. I agree with that. I don't like, what is the point of shooting it around all the destruction? Yes, Bond says, no, I don't like the jacket. Yeah, Dave says it looks like Mao's suit. Bond says it looks strange on the setting. Tracken says, I think it's wrong to stall in around. Yeah. I don't really. When I look at that, you know what I think of? Now that I've got these comments up, Dennis says wrong color. I think he looks like a bellboy. If you went to a hotel and you needed somebody to carry your bags, that'd be the guy I'd go to. So if you buy that and you are hanging out around a hotel, people are probably going to tip you. I guess it's sort of stylish. It is. Or maybe you could work at a restaurant wearing that. That would fit in too. The color's right. He looks pretty serious there. Very serious Russian model. With his pipe. That's not healthy, dude. Shouldn't smoke. So there it is. Joseph Stalin inspired a new fashion line all these years later. Like I said, if there was one guy that I wouldn't do a fashion line, that'd be like, he'd be one of the guys. I'd be like, no, you don't, no. To each their own, I guess. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's not bad. It just looks looks like a work jacket of some kind to me, not so much fashion forward. But what do I know about fashion? You can wear whatever you want, I guess. Any other comments in there? I'm going to go to Rumble and see what the comments are in there about this this fashion statement. Is it pro-communist? What are you guys thinking? Looks like a bellboy, yeah, Linda Carter. Says, looks like a Belfast chef hat to go with it. Yeah, says dead leftist. DAA 1980 says, isn't Lori a commie though? Well, we have communists on the show. I think Lori says she's a libertarian, guys. She says she's not a communist. So, sometimes she could fool me too because she's so friendly with our communist friends. And that's okay. I bet you she would like it. I know that she said many, many nice things about Joseph Stalin when she's been on here. I'm not making a political statement here. I'm just saying I don't think Joseph Stalin had that much fashion sense anyway. No. Be Lovely says Stalin jacket for sure. It's funny. It's funny. There you go. Well, guys, that gets us to the bottom of the hour. We've been at this for an hour and a half, and I did start a little later tonight. I had a lot of other stuff going on here today, and I think tonight we're probably going to wrap it up a little bit earlier than you might have expected as well. I think that's probably the wise thing to do this evening. So, with that being said, I do appreciate you guys hanging out here with me again this evening. Always a privilege. I will be back tomorrow evening. Should be here at 6 p.m. Eastern. If not, I will be back on at 7. Sort of depends on how things unfold tomorrow. I've got a lot of stuff on the go, some other deadlines to meet on content. But hopefully 6, and we'll go right through again to the usual time. I will make an effort to do that so you get the full Maverick News treatment tomorrow night. When we come back, catch you on the flip side.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.